Hello and welcome to Campaign Comrades, your favorite Leftist gaming podcast. This week we are talking about I'm now blanking. What year did it actually come out? Because
2020.
Yeah,
because we're talking about Ghost of Tsushima.
it was one of the last PS4.
Yeah, it was closed out the PS4 generation, and in my mind, I can never remember when the PS5 generation actually started because of COVID, because of console slippage, and all that
I distinctly
shit.
remember it being a 2020 thing because I had something else in 2020 that wasn't COVID that ate up my life, and that was Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Which a lot of people played during COVID and enjoyed quite a bit. And then also another one of those, weird kind of transitional generation titles.
Yeah, because we got a PS5 Director's Cut.
Yeah, so this released originally in 2020 and then PS5 basically a year later, almost exactly a year later. I know the answer for Matt and myself since we played it more recently. Andrew, did you play the original PS4 version?
Yeah, I played this on PS4 at release in
I distinctly
July of
remember it
2020.
being considered one of like the best looking PS4 games at the time.
Definitely.
Which would track because like as far as like a PS5 upgrade goes, it's one of probably the better looking PS5 upgrades.
Yeah, I was gonna say the PS5 the tech specs of it were still really impressive. It was one of the first games. This was even before I played it before the Pro came out, and basically you could play it on quality mode and still get 60 frames, and just the environments were gorgeous. The one like kind of dated element that you could see that this was a previous generation title was the stiffness of facial animations outside of cutscenes, and was one of the critiques of the original game too, is like that people said that the facial tech wasn't fully up to par to deliver some of the emotional scenes that it was going for. And then I'm thinking back, I'm like, okay, when I played it, the cutscene facial animations in the director's cut were excellent and were definitely evoking the emotions that I wanted. All the confrontations between Jin Sakai and Khoten Khan and what's the brother's name when he dies? Man, I don't remember even all the characters' names.
Oh, you're talking about her brother.
Yeah.
I'll pull it up.
He was too pure for this world. That scene in particular, I remember kind of striking me as one of the most emotionally evocative as an NPC, this side character is made to pay the price for Jin's actions, as it really is kind of the denouement of Taka. The internal struggle that is at the core.
The Google search, when I typed in Ghost of Tsushima characters, the first list that popped up was a split of characters and voice actor names. And I was like, what? Stop with this shit. I said characters.
Was that the Google AI doing that for you?
Yes. It was literally like Jin Sakai, Yuna, Masako, and then it was just like Jared Liu. And I was like...
That's not helpful. But I should say, jumping far into plot and stuff, Taka was the most gonna die coded character of all time.
Yeah, that's true.
Generally speaking, they set him up for it pretty well with his entire character arc.
You knew it was going to happen. But yeah, it
was a worthwhile sacrifice, though.
Let's backpedal.
Necessary for our character.
Yeah, let's backpedal a little bit. Don't want to get into plot yet, but it was that was a potent example for me of how there is a gulf in some of its technical presentation, that in non-cutscene stuff, like NPC faces textures are pretty flat. The emotional capability of expression is not super high. But my God, the environment.
I don't think I was ever really looking at that, though. Like, there's so much else going on with the backgrounds and the scenes that I wasn't necessarily ever locked in.
And for the most part,
the way that the camera works, because it's a little more noticeable in something like Horizon, with how much closer you are to the camera, with how much more in focus the character faces are when you're working with them.
Yeah, but there is definitely a generational leap there, and the particular engine that is done in is known for its facial fidelity, even the original Horizon.
And
that's like one of its selling points.
Just to add to that, I did download the PS4 version because that's the version I actually have like my save data associated with, and I didn't want to, even though I could play the PS5 version for free or whatever, that's the version I downloaded. And just comparing the visuals of that to Yotei, it's a huge difference there. It really is.
And it's
Pretty
it is,
sure
again,
you can transfer your save data.
I probably can. I just didn't care to spend that much time. It was just easier to download
So
the
did
PS4
you
version.
you booted it up recently to
Yeah, this week
get a
I
look
did.
at it?
Yeah, I did. I played it this week just to get a little bit of feel for the
Did you go
gameplay
to
again.
Icky Island?
I didn't go to Icky Island. I just played around on the mainland, riding around on the horse, attacking
Coward.
some of the Mongol, encampments that I hadn't taken out.
In the roving bands and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't necessarily speak to the original version, but the director's cut version, again, I could see elements of, okay, yes, I could tell that here and there that this is coming from a previous generation. But then when you're just immersing yourself in the world environment, which is where these games absolutely, unquestionably excel, you're just like, so I know in my head from seeing things like Faces, yes, this was a PS4 game. And then like, how was this a PS4 game? When I'm seeing the world
the end of the
around me.
PS4 generation was like pushing that hardware to its absolute limit. Like if you had a PS4 Slim and you were trying to play some of those end of generation titles, you would put that disc in and it would just be like, boss, really? Like, do it. You can handle it. Like, I don't know, boss. I'm getting tired.
I've told you guys many times about the state of my PS4 by the time I upgraded. My disk drive stopped working. It was just a fucking jet engine.
I mean, it was full of cigar grime.
Yeah, cigar and weed smoke. It was
two notoriously good things for electronics.
Yeah. Keeping mine here pristine, my PS5 pristine. But God of War was the last like real game I played on it, and 2018, and which I played late in the game, and it was chugging. I can only imagine what it would have been like trying to play this game on my PS4 at that stage. Probably would have exploded. But like this Ghost of Tsushima was a highly lauded game for a lot of what it did in terms of pushing boundaries. I'd say actually it's a bit of a mixed bag in that it was lauded pretty universally for pushing the boundaries in its visual style. It won. It was like that was the game award that it won, was like best art direction. I think obviously deserved, but then was criticized for some of its considered outdated design mechanics in terms of its world that, for me, when I played it, I didn't feel as strongly about. And we can get into a conversation about how does this fit into the mold of the quote Ubisoft open world game? How does it push against it? It's where does that hit for you? Is that a problem that it kind of subscribes to what most people feel as an outdated and played out design system? Not talking about specific mechanics in terms of, say, like combat. Combat, I think, is a whole nother category. Let's just like talk like world design. What were your thoughts on its structure? And I will be interested to get Andrew's opinion on how you think Yotei has moved from it, what lessons it may or may not have learned from Tsushima. But let's start with Tsushima.
Well, I think it's actually a softer Ubisoft open world than something like Horizon, which is more of a pure Ubisoft open world, because one of the big keys for me in an Ubisoft-like is the tower structure. So like in Breath of the Wild, when you find a tower and it unlocks the whole portion of your map, or when you go in Horizon, you find a tall neck and it unlocks a whole portion of your map, giving you that like singular point where like, I need to rush there so I can get the whole map unlocked so I can see what I'm going for. Where Tsushima doesn't have those singular points that just, boom, here's the whole map. You go do a camp and it pops just a little bit of the area around the camp. You go to another camp, it pops another little bit of area around the camp.
It's the fog of war style versus the discrete map sections. Yeah. Which it's not a tower, but can you call Elden Ring, an Ubisoft open world in that sense, that you're going for that specific point to get the map fragment to open up that whole section of the map? I don't know.
It's kind of, it's closer than I think Tsushima is to that. I
mean, it's pretty much the only part of Elden Ring's open world that has that, because there's no like, oh, go over here and /10
Yeah, no,
logs.
I'm bullshitting. That was not a serious.
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
not a serious comparison.
It's I didn't
And
even
to
when this
finish
game.
my statement is I
Yeah,
didn't
yeah, go ahead.
mind the way out at all. Like I think
That
from my perspective, having played a couple different of the genre of the Ubisoft open world that we'll call, like I think Sony does it pretty well. I think Breath of the Wild handled it pretty well. And I'll bring it back to the one Ubisoft game I've played in my modern history.
Oh boy,
Immortal Phoenix Rising does it horribly. And that I think
Matt's
that's
Matt's most hated game.
if you gave me a gun with 3 bullets and told me I could kill 3 games, I would shoot Immortal Phoenix Rising 3 times.
Just to be sure.
That's
all right. So I'm in agreement with you. I don't have, and I didn't have this as like a real complaint for the game when I played it. I feel like while it does do some of the Ubisoft model, it does it in a way that I'm not annoyed or put off by. And by that, I mean, when you're actually playing the game, the interface and using the wind to guide you and not give you like a mini map with 1,000 different points of interest on it really changes my enjoyment level.
it's an interesting like slight change because it's essentially the Elden Ring compass system. Like
Yeah.
you put a pin down
It's
and you
similar.
follow you like into the pin.
I've always said a compass is far superior to a mini map.
Agreed.
Like,
And
I
it's-
don't love games that have like no sense of directionality. People kept a recent release. People kept like blowing smoke up the ass of the game Hell Is Us and how like there's no hand holding, none of this. They don't even have a map that you can consult,
No.
which is ridiculous because you basically have a Pip-Boy that should be able to at the very least track the things that you're doing. And yeah, maybe not giving me markers and quest markers would be something that I would like, but like the ability to have a map that you can then reference yourself is, in my opinion, a bare minimum. But I've always going to choose a compass over mini.
No,
That's why I like Final Fantasy, the Final Fantasy VII remake games. I like that because you get the choice. You can change from a mini map to a compass, and I always choose the compass. It's more immersive while also helping me be stupid.
The
Yes.
wind acts as an in-universe
compass.
like mechanic for the compass.
Yeah, it's
Whereas
great.
like the compass is more of a player focused, like, okay, cool, I can see at the top of the screen which direction I'm going. Whereas this is like, ooh, follow the wind. It's gonna
Yeah.
take you where you need to go.
And it's a really immersive way to do it. And I really like that. And, I just want to say, comparing it to something that I also am kind of playing parallel to these games in Borderlands 4, I open that mini map and I feel dread. There's so much to do, and it is just so overwhelming that I just try to get in and out of that part of the game as quickly as possible because I am enjoying the combat part of it. That's fun. The guns are cool, but like looking at that map is just an uncomfortable experience. I do not like it, and I don't feel that way when I play Tsushima because
I thought we learned a lesson here about not name dropping Borderlands 4 because Randy Pitchford is gonna
come at me, Randy. Come on.
yeah,
bring it.
Randy's gonna attack us on Twitter.
Make us
Come on
famous,
the-
Randy.
Yeah, come
because you don't like the mini map.
But
on the
so,
pod, Randy. You're always
I
welcome.
I do really enjoy how they do that. I think it's a very immersive way of fostering exploration and still
And it's a
giving
mechanic
you
you don't need to engage with.
right. You don't have to if you don't want to. You can use it. And I'm also going to
Like,
use this
admittedly,
opportunity.
my trackpad had a visible like thumb swipe
Totally.
across it from the amount of times that I had swiped in the same spot.
Yeah.
I'm constantly swiping up. But I will say, and this might be a hot take because I am curious how you both feel about this concept. I think the wind is a great feature in guiding, and I think compass is great. And I am also going to put myself firmly on the side of the yellow paint in the yellow paint controversies.
Yellow paint needs to exist in some form or method. Doesn't necessarily need to be exactly yellow paint, but as we get to a more high fidelity world, you need something that indicates, okay, this is something I can climb up. versus
Yeah.
that's just something that looks like something I can climb.
So Yotei has a version of it, but it's not yellow. It's just slightly discolored. Well, yeah, because it's either you need to have a Breath of the Wild system where you can climb anything,
right?
Or you need some guidance. People are stupid.
Anything. When it's raining, you not.
Literally.
Yeah.
Not even people. Me. I am stupid. I do not want to be stuck somewhere for 15 minutes trying to find how I climb up. I've had that experience in gaming because
Where's
of
the handhold,
not having
goddammit?
And that is one of the worst things ever. I will absolutely accept the yellow paint in order to not have those things happen.
The people who are like, it breaks my immersion. You're playing a game.
Yeah. So there's a recent one for me that did that best there, in that there is a built-in story explanation of why there is something like that. Was Expedition 33 is you'll find throughout these levels, you'll find sometimes it's basically like a magical fireman's pole that you can like travel up or down. There are these handholds that have been put into the rocks that are, your ways of navigating vertical spaces. But the whole point is that you are in a line of expeditions where all the ones who have come before have laid the ground for you. You're coming across their dead bodies and their records, and it's all about how these are paths that previous expeditions have laid for you. And so that it is not just the developers guiding me, the player, it is the in-world previous characters developing or leading this party along. So that was like a really good use of that. There was a built-in story reason for that.
Cool.
And that was absolutely necessary for a game that like was being criticized, and I think unfairly, by stupid people who couldn't follow their pretty clearly signposted directions of the core path in these levels. There are always lights showing you the right direction, morons. Look up. But no, okay, I digress.
I do want to bring us back, and I want to just comment about how I perceive the difference between Yotei and Tsushima from this perspective, and really just in one aspect, and that is I like how Yotei gives you the eyeglass and doesn't really have that fog of war concept. I like that you can just kind of look and spot things, and then you clear the map as you just explore, as opposed to the fog of war concept.
The spyglass was probably my favorite feature of Yotei in terms of exploration. I don't know how often I used it to be like, I see this thing. When you find a new thing, once you focus on it for long enough, the name of the place pops up, and if you were to open up your map, you would find the little icon, but you then have the option to set that as your current waypoint. I don't think I would do that a lot, but what I would be doing is that I would always, whenever I would, based on my own exploration or a story point, like an often case would be like, I'm going up a shrine trail, and so I've gotten to a high point in elevation. I'm just popping up the eyeglass, and I'm just looking around. And I'm just clearing the map out that way. And again, they find ways to make this common formula feel fresh and immersive at that same time. Yeah. Like for me, I liked the Ubisoft style open world in Tsushima. It felt comfortable, but it didn't feel, so it felt comforting in a certain way, but it didn't feel I didn't have that sense of daunting checklist type shit that you're describing for Borderlands.
A lot of it, as you're going, you're just exploring through, and then like a yellow bird will pop by. You'll be like, ooh, I should follow that bird. Or you'll be running by and you're like, ooh, a fox. I should follow that fox.
It is a little bit of ADD, the game, in that like you set yourself objectives, and the world is constantly pulling you in these different ways, in these different directions. This, I think, is a good transition and a good question. In terms of exploration, how did you feel about the rewards? How did you feel that the rewards at the end of those different paths, if like the bird is pulling you to a new area, did you feel like what it brought you to at the end was something worthwhile? Were there ever things that you found were a letdown? Like my one comparison is like the one thing for me that I struggled with connecting with in Elden Ring in its exploration was its rewards. For me, the biggest reward in Elden Ring exploration was just seeing things, was just seeing the world and getting environmental storytelling. 90% of the time, you're getting an item that meant nothing to me. Like, I'm not on my first playthrough, I was a spellcaster. I didn't care about melee weapons. And then vice versa, on my second playthrough, I was a melee user. I didn't care about getting a staff or a new spell or something like that. That the exploration, the reward never felt like it was really impactful to me. Whereas for me in Tsushima, for the most part, exploration always felt good in that the something at the end was either the incremental upgrades of something like the health from an onsen, or the extra spirit from a bamboo strike. Cosmetics were maybe the closest for me of, do I really care about this? But the swag in these games is also really good.
Yeah.
Now, there's only one thing on the map that was ever like, oh, that's what you took me to for the question mark, and it was Legend Storytellers.
Sure. Yeah, because I didn't do any of the Legends, any of the multiplayer stuff, which from what I've heard is actually pretty good. There is actually there's some decent stuff there. But yeah, what about you, Andrew?
No, I honestly am in agreement. I think like the thing I was least likely to pursue necessarily was the armor, because once I found armor that I liked, I was more focused on getting the
especially because majority
paint
of the
for it, like
majority
changing
of
the
the armor
look.
you want would be mythic armor from those
Right,
mythic quests.
exactly. What I was trying to remember, what does the Foxtons reward you with in this game?
Charms.
Yeah, the Foxton charms I found a little underwhelming, I think, if I remember correctly. But like bamboo strikes, hot springs, the Tales of Tsushima that reward you with charms, those all feel well like earned for the most part with those activities in my mind. Like I think it is worthy rewards for your time. And
We don't besmirch the Foxtons because you get to give them scritches at the end.
True.
Which, folks, don't go do that in Japan. They've warned people about that. They carry a parasite that will kill you. Don't approach the foxes.
It's like the deer in that one portion of Japan where it's like there's a very specific set of
There's the deer that have learned to bow to people to get crackers.
And there's like you're supposed to only gesture to them if you're going to feed them like the rice crackers that like you can buy at the park.
Mm-hmm.
And if you like gesture to give them food but don't give them food, you might end up getting headbutted.
Which good, you deserve that. If you're playing with them, if you're playing with their wants and their needs like that, then yeah, you deserve a headbutt. But I love the little foxes. I maybe the following them was a little bit. It's like you find them at their den and then you got to follow them through.
I only think I had like one or two instances where they like dragged me by like a roaming group of Mongols, or like a horde of Mongols fighting a bear. And it's like, oh, cool. Guess I'll just kill these guys and then I'll go back to your den and re-find you.
I don't know if it's possible to kill a fox accidentally. I'm pretty sure if they come across conflict, they just kind of remove themselves to a safe distance.
There's a specific side quest that centers around
there's a hunter.
Mongols killing foxes.
Yeah.
And like you're following a fox friend who's bringing you to him.
Forever shame upon me in my dojo for I accidentally killed one of the birds once. It was like in an occupied territory, and it was like it just kept circling. Like it was taking me somewhere. There's a bunch of enemies and I couldn't get to where it was trying to get me. And I like had kind of lost track of where it was, and I threw an explosive and it got caught in it and it died. And Jin gives some line about how, basically how he has brought dishonor upon himself or something by
I'm shocked that those don't like just have a no damage kind of thing on them in the game. That's pretty surprising.
It was just like flying above the rooftop, like a low hanging roof, and I just had chucked an explosive into a group of guys, and it got exploded. It got splurted. Yeah, I found the exploration in Tsushima to be really enjoyable, and I'm trying to like think about how I compare it to Yotei, and I think that Yotei has a sense of feeling denser because I found it easier to complete everything, whereas I eventually stopped trying to I platinumed Yotei fairly easily, but then decided not to pursue that in Tsushima. And I don't really remember my reasoning for that. It was just I had spent a good enough
really
time
easy
into
platinum.
it. Yeah, I know it's not hard. It's not hard, but maybe it was just more like it felt like I was just traveling across distances too long. But like when I was
I think
playing,
the
I
hardest
never
part
felt.
about it was finding it wasn't the sockeye banners. It was the Icky Island one. It was just the banners.
Well, you
And
know
if
what it was? You know what one of the tough ones were? Yeah, they had those sometimes in camps, but it was the Mongol records or whatever that you had to find.
Yeah, but
across.
there was an armor set that you get pretty early on, the Traveler set, which gives you a glowing like firefly who will pulse if you get close to Mongol artifacts.
So
I basically wore that armor set the entire time that I played the game, so that there was no.
Yotei has a version of that one that does something similar in that regard, in that it has a firefly that tracks your skill point shrines, but it also is worse in that it's like one of its passives is that like you get extra flowers when you are riding your horse through the flower fields that give you speed boosts. And the ideal one for the traveler's attire in Tsushima was that it cleared more fog of war, so it doesn't have that. They got rid of that part of it. I'm like, well, that's a bummer. I'm probably never going to wear this.
I'd like to point out for the video viewers here the absolute disrespect that I gave my cat a kiss on the head, and she decided to instantly start bathing and cleaning that portion of her body before initiating a full bath time. So I'm feeling pretty.
How dare you soil me, sir?
I'm feeling pretty
Disgusting
insulted
human
right
oils.
Yeah, so exploration for me always felt fun and never felt like a chore. And I even liked
The only times
Mongol camps.
the only times in exploration I got like slightly annoyed, and that's just the way I play these types of games, is I tend to do as much of the shit as possible before progressing story. It was when you would get to places that were clearly story related, and it would give you the pop-up warning of like overwhelming enemy forces, like.
Yeah, there. In fairness, there are only like a couple of those places in.
But there was one that I spent a
Tsushima.
good like 45 minutes trying to infiltrate, because I was like, motherfucker, you're not turning me away here. It was like, I will find a way in here. And it was like, oh no, there's just like, there's no hiding once they see you. Like they will shoot you from all angles. You will die like a dog in the streets.
The game's telling you, we will make this impossible. There is no end to
No, like,
reinforcements in this section.
There was one in particular on like the southern coast where I was like, this feels doable. Like
Yeah,
I have
it's a big town. I know which one you're talking about.
It's like I have a cliff that I can sit up here and like snipe from to like take out the guys in the tower so they can't shoot me, so that I should be able to get up, and then like you'd shoot them and kill them and you'd crawl up and there'd be people shooting you anyway.
Yeah, it doesn't feel very fun. But that's, I guess, a good transition to combat mechanics. How did we feel about it ties into obviously the enemy encampments. That's probably the biggest Ubisoft corollary of just non-story related enemy camps that you got to clear out, and they are, to call them stealth sandboxes is maybe giving the game a little too much credit. Obviously, and next thing I want to get into is the whole samurai versus ghost dynamic that is at the core of the story of this game. But that is explored most mechanically in these encampments, where they are giving you an ability to stealth through and take them out silently as the ghost, or to just go in katana blazing, stand off the whole way. How did you guys approach those, and how do you feel overall about the combat in the game? We all played on hard difficulty, didn't we?
I played on medium.
Or Andrew, since you played it early,
Yeah, I played on medium because I wasn't.
normal.
Yeah, I wasn't quite as hardened as a gamer as I am now. No, I played medium. Here, a couple things I want to say on this topic. The Mongol camps did eventually kind of get a little bit boring to me. And it's one of the few places where it becomes a little bit of a checkbox item in this game. And I think they do a better job with this in Yotei, because when they do these, when you have the Yotei kind of equivalent, there's at least a little bit more of a narrative reason for what's going on there, as opposed to just you want to take out Mongol camps. And like maybe you interact with someone, and I just remember feeling like
I mean,
the
there's
Mongol
still the
camps.
narrative reason of you have invaders in your
True.
home island.
And I wouldn't say that Yotei's is really much
It's-
better, because it's
yeah, fair.
basically it'll be like, if you want to get the weapon sensei's final teaching, you got to clear all the camps in the region as part of a checklist of, you got to clear that, you got to
All right,
get
you're
a
right,
new
you're right.
skill, you got to get a new skill, and you got to follow the main story.
You're right.
They don't give you a whole lot of reason. The most that they maybe do is in the Kitsune region, where you're taking out like the special hideouts.
Got it.
But even that is not like, there's not a huge amount of plot to
Okay,
it.
fair.
But it's the difference in Yotei is that there are definitely fewer of them. They are not as many.
Yeah, there's a
Which
lot
people
of Mongol camps.
It's so funny, man. Gamers you can't please them either way. People would say, yeah, I don't like, that's just the boring Ubisoft formula. There's no real reason to do it. They're all basically some variation of the same. When you're in them, you're basically following the checklist. Find the flags, the artifact, kill the leader, or observe the leader to hopefully get that skill point towards your techniques, which we can talk about the techniques, and then just clear out the camp.
I mean, there's some slight variation among them. There are smaller ones, which it's only a couple guys in a leader.
Rescue
There's bigger ones
a
where
prisoner,
the rescue the prisoner ones were always the ones that I found to be the most challenging for myself, because there came a point in the game where I was power fantasying pretty hard, where it was like early on, I was like, yes, I have to stealth. There's a lot of enemies. I don't know. I won't be able to handle this. By the end of the game, I'm like, I'm walking straight up to the front door. I'm like,
I'm
calling
standoffing
them
the
out.
whole,
Like, we're gonna do six. I'm gonna kill 6 of you right here with standoffs. I'm gonna go into ghost mode, kill another 4 of you. I'm gonna decapitate your boss in front of all of you.
So that's exactly how I ended up playing it. Maybe it was a little bit of me feeling like, oh, this is just kind of inflating playtime, that this game is fun, but not that fun, that I want to spend, and that the stealth sandbox is not developed enough for me to feel like it's rewarding to spend that much time stealth killing through the whole encampment. Whereas in Yotei, they're trying to take on a full encampment just straight on is more of a challenge than it is in Tsushima. That, I mean, there were definitely, do want to clear parts of it by stealth first.
There were definitely a couple encampments that I distinctly remember. I basically Nazi zombied it, where I would like walk in, like get overwhelmed, and then just start running in a circle around the entire camp until they were like lined up, and then like I'd climb up a ladder and like kill one of them, then continue running in a circle, then climb back up the ladder.
I never resorted to that level of cowardice.
I had no healing items left, and I wasn't about to redo it.
So by the mid to late game, I was pure samuraiing it the whole way. Yeah, that is like a bit of a
the only exception being whenever there were hostages, because you cannot do that if they have hostages, because they will just kill them.
There is a bit of a disconnect for me personally when it came to the narrative part, where it's like the inner dilemma between between following the uncle's path of samurai honor versus the ghost, the ninja ghost. And to me, I'm like, I've maybe poisoned 2 guys when the story dictated for me. I'm just going in. I
poisoned a shitload of people. I was all in on poison, madness.
Challenging them. I'm just challenging them to honorable duels the entire time and just tooling on them with my perfect parry build. Which, again, I still maintain that perfect parriers were better in Tsushima than they were in Yotei. And I think that's probably just because of the variety of weapon animations are different.
That's interesting that you feel that, because I felt like it was the same when I went back and played Tsushima this week.
Not to me.
It didn't bother me much.
I was a parry god.
Didn't make Yotei feel worse.
I was a parry god in Tsushima on hard mode.
He's suffering from schizo delusions where he couldn't do it as good, so it's clearly the game's fault.
I was still pretty good at parrying, but like I couldn't rely on it as much as I could in group fights. I was doing it in duels. I was using like the parry armor for it where it disables regular parries, but enhances your counterattack for a perfect parry. That was again, to me, I don't know. I felt that level of the combat was a little bit tighter in Tsushima. But yeah, for me, there was
One
that
thing that
disconnect
I
of
remember
like,
commenting on initially when I started playing was that unlike a lot of games, the sword feels like a sword. Like it feels like you're inflicting actual damage and sword wounds and not just wiffle ball batting people to death.
So I was reading this in the development when I was researching the game's development, where as they were iterating on the combat system, that in early playtests, people complained about that issue, basically that enemies were sword sponges, that it didn't feel good to have to wail on regular enemies with your fucking razor sharp katana 50 times to get them to die. So that's when they eventually implemented the stagger mechanic, so that all enemies outside of duels are different, and they describe that as duels needed to feel like it took longer because people expect them to be boss fights, so that to kill them in a few blows doesn't feel good. But for regular enemies, they all have the same amount of health, and that when they would scale difficulty, the only thing that they're changing is behavior. So they will be both more aggressive, but then also be better at defending against your attacks. So that revolves around the need to stagger, to break guards.
I mean, that's even evident when you're doing the standoffs later in the game. As the farther into the game you get, the more they'll faint and they'll try
Yeah. But so every enemy, dies in like 2 or 3 cuts, right? Because it makes it feel more like, you're wielding a true sword. That reminds me of what I loved about the Force Unleashed games was the deadliness and the power fantasy of the force powers, but the lightsaber just felt like you were just whacking somebody with a colored stick.
Yeah.
So that's something I'm always paying attention to, and I think this game sells that really well. That's a good point.
It does do a good job with that. I think, going back just to this game though, compared to Yotei, I just felt Yotei's combat I like even more. Like these both games have great combat. I think they improved upon it. It's more cinematic to me. It just looks cooler while still playing incredibly tight. And I think for me at least, even playing Tsushima when I was in it, the different stances don't look or feel all that different outside of just making sure you're matching it up correctly so that you do the damage more quickly. But like as a mechanic, it just doesn't feel different.
That is technically the same exact thing that's happening in Yotei, is that you are dealing more stagger and more damage based on the rock, paper, scissor aspect of it. But it is definitely more tangible.
It feels more tangible.
To pull out a completely different weapon than just to go from my sword is here to my sword is up here.
Yeah.
It's easier to mentally track those differences because they are explicitly different weapons.
Yeah, which I just think is just a little more fun in my opinion, and it's just comparatively when I went back, it just like that tangibility a little bit more feels more hefty.
I think we mentioned this in the previous episode where you and I were talking about our experience directly with Yotei, that I loved that system in Tsushima. I liked the tactical nature of reading my opponents and reacting appropriately. People were so upset when they're like, they got rid of stances, what the fuck are they doing? And I'm just like, they've done the exact same thing. They've just made it, again, feel more immersive and kind of physical.
Yeah.
So it is accomplishing the exact same thing. So I don't understand why people would complain about it, besides maybe saying, like, I don't like how the spear plays. Someone who could maybe make that argument. And the biggest one for me in Yotei, which again, we shouldn't be talking too much about Yotei, but can't avoid it at this point. The one thing that I had the most difficulty with was like, once you upgrade it enough, there is a perfect counter. It's different than a parry. You can still parry, but there is a different counter system with the Odachi that lets you perfect counter red attacks, which are normally unblockable dodge. You have to dodge them. It's like you have to like hold and charge it in at the exact right time, and because it's not just holding the button, it's not just hitting the button at the right time that a parry is, you have to take into account the charge time at the right second. I could never quite get my hand on that one, so I kind of avoided it. But for the most part, I liked each of the weapons well enough that they That's maybe, I guess, yeah, if you're going to criticize it at any point, it's just that the katana always feels good, no matter what stance you're in. And I think that some people could maybe be like, yeah, I don't love a certain weapon, and that can maybe bring it down a notch for some people. But it is accomplishing the same mechanical function as the stances.
Totally.
Before we talk about story, which I think we can kind of spend the rest of the episode talking about, one of the other major critiques that people levied at this game was its side questing. And I think there are two levels of side quests. And then again, Andrew, I am interested to see, because there was a point I wanted to bring up in that episode last time, but that we kind of just got off topic and never brought up how we think Yotei handles side quests. And people were saying that they didn't like the side quests in Tsushima, that they felt that they were ultimately meaningless or superficial or kind of just do it and
there's
forget
layers.
it.
There's different types of side. You have the character specific side quests with the
chains,
your 4 big people, 5 I guess if you count whatever the fucking sake dealer his name was.
Yeah.
You have smaller, more specific, like, oh, I just came across this dude on an island with a rowboat whose like daughter was stolen by the Mongols out on that boat out there, and like you're gonna go save her. You got like the mythic quests, which I found to be the most engaging because they were the ones that it was like, follow this man's like journey across this island to find where he like laid his armor to rest, or where he like
those are the mythic tales.
Yeah. And like I didn't have any issues with pretty much any of the types of side quests. Like there was never a point where I came and was like, oh, I guess I'll help you.
I think the ones that people most complain about are just the random nameless NPCs that you come across that aren't involved with a major chain or like the mythic tales. Before I give my opinion, Andrew, what was your experience with the side content like that in Tsushima?
I share Matt's opinion for the most part with the side quests. I think most of them are fairly fun. I like the Tales of Tsushima. I didn't really have any issues with any of those. I definitely thought the mythic tales were the best of what side content there was in this offering. They were the most enjoyable and immersive and kind of thought through and on a deeper level. So I liked the mechanics of those. For me, the biggest side content that I didn't like, which we've hit on already, was just the amount of Mongol encampments. Like to your point, there's less of it in Yotei. I think that's really why I've identified it as being better there than anything else. But those just got to a point where they just felt boring and weren't. So that is probably the biggest issue I have with the side content, was just the Mongol encampments. Like the scripted side content, I for the most part enjoyed.
So I take issue with the critics who said that like the small side quests didn't feel good or impactful, or like complaining about like the reward that you got for them. I'm like, fuck off. For me, what I found myself really enjoying about those, and in a way I almost liked them better than some of the larger chained quest lines, including the major NPC characters or the mythic tales, which obviously had the best rewards, right?
Yeah,
because it's either a new combat technique, a new set of armor, or something like that. I love these little moments because they were always investigating in these little personal, even though you don't know anything about like the individual, and it's not like these are persistent characters, but it was just this window into how a brutal occupation would affect every aspect of commoners' lives. Livestock being driven away.
Where they run like a sake brewery isn't the right term, but we'll call it that because I don't know what you would. Yeah. Where they make sake and you get brought in because the Mongols have been periodically like twice a week coming in and taking their entire stock, so they can't make a living anymore, and they bring you in to kill the Mongols and scare them off.
Yeah, it's like, but to me it was just about how it propelled the motivation for the main quest so much better, because it sold the reasoning of why that Jin is not doing this just for like the revenge of his fellow samurai that have fallen, that he is doing this, he is becoming the ghost for the people of Tsushima Island who are who are having their lives completely upended by this brutal occupation, and how every aspect of their life is being turned upside down. They can't get enough food. Their father or husband has been abducted to work in some camp, or their livelihoods have been ruined, their house burned down, all these things. And maybe what they eventually go to have you do are all small, minor, insignificant tasks to Jin and to the player, but they're very meaningful for the people. And it is, in my opinion, was sold the what's at stake with this Mongol invasion better than like those core quest lines of your mentors, because those were personal stories to them, like the fact of the archer guys, the Ishikawa, that his apprentice has turned on him, and yes, she's joined the Mongols, but it doesn't feel like, so his quest is about being a sense of personal betrayal, not about the existential threat that the Mongols pose. That if the Mongols weren't there, his story would probably be similar in that his apprentice has abandoned him, betrayed him from some other reason, and he's on this other kind of personal quest where...
Well, the some other reason being that he's a pretty harsh and overbearing sensei.
No, he's a complicated character.
Was the key.
No, he's a complicated character in and of himself, and I liked those characters. I'm not saying that, but it's just more that what these little quests that respect your time and that they are not long and drawn out, but that in their entirety, they sell what is happening to the people of Tsushima in a much better and clearer way.
That's the real immersion to me. Like, that's where this game really does nail the immersion in its setting and its narrative is through those smaller interactions.
Sure, its side questing doesn't have as great of an impact or long-standing choices and consequences as, say, something like The Witcher 3 does, right? That's got side questing in a whole nother league. But this, again, it was about the impact it had on your sense of the world and how Jin is moving through it, I think was really effective. So that's a good transition to the core story here, that obviously the Mongol invasion of Tsushima based on real-life events that... say, which Khan is it?
Right, isn't that his name?
Khotan Khan, yeah. Khotan Khan, he's a cousin of Kublai, is, trying to invade the mainland via Tsushima Island. And Jin and his adopted father, uncle, are leading the resistance of the samurai clans. That's the game's opening. Yeah. They just get fucking obliterated. Because the Mongols at the time are like the most advanced military basically in the world, and they just get fucking
not
annihilated.
To pull some history buff stuff out of there, but Mongol horseback archery, like the techniques they used back then, are still considered advanced techniques to this day.
Right. No, they got absolutely fucking annihilated, and as becomes like the catch line for the remainder of the game is that, honor died on that beach. That the samurai ideal that the uncle, that Lord Shimura professes, is no longer relevant based off of the reality that became clear to Jin upon essentially dying and being reborn as the ghost after that battle. So that, again, is the internal and external pressures that are going on throughout the whole story. And how did that land
Jin
for you?
is even resistant initially.
Oh, yeah.
To the idea of by any means necessary.
I mean, he considers Yuna to be a dishonorable thief and wants nothing to do with her at first. But then as he's seeing the scope of what he's up against as basically one of the sole defenders, he's got to do what he's got to do. But for me, I will say the one thing that I struggled with that was a disconnect for me, I kind of mentioned it before, is that I wasn't playing with like the ghost techniques that often. I was taking more of the samurai path, so that when you would get to these major plot points where he's then got to go poison the whole, like their whole forward army, and he's like, no, I'm embracing the ghost identity, when I'm just like, no, man, that's not how I've been playing. So it didn't fully hit for me.
There's some, this is where I'm honestly most critical of this game. Like, I don't really find the main conflict to be all that interesting, of like samurai versus ghost, and I think it's I think it is limited by the fact that you can play more like the samurai, but the game effectively forces you to be the ghost. Like the game wants you to become the ghost. It pushes you to become the ghost. There's no not being the ghost. So that is.
I mean, it's not a game built on that narrative choice.
Right.
Like
100%.
The narrative choice in this game essentially comes down to your ending.
Right.
And what
you
choose to do with your uncle.
Right. But even then, it's
but that's
limited.
Based on his.
It's
that's
limited
based
by
upon his presumed action as the ghost.
Right. Exactly.
And to me, it was more like if they wanted that to be the case, that they should have pushed more into making a mechanical challenge of, wow, yeah, the challenge is so great that I have to resort to these. Basically, it's like that they should have made a better stealth sandbox if that's what they wanted, if that's really what they wanted you to kind of wrestle with. And to me, it was just like, I didn't feel the need to. It was faster and more visceral to play it as the samurai.
And that's my other contention and issue with all of this is like, either way, you're still slaughtering people. Like one way or another, you are violently killing people.
You're doing it to their face.
Okay. But isn't it like, how can the protection of your homeland and the people that live there and make it special not be moral and not like, either, I don't know. I find the whole idea of like
the entire point of Samurai Code.
But like I don't know.
Your issue comes down to like the
your honor is more important than the people.
Right, is what they're contesting. Is ultimately like the samurai view is kind of my thought. And like you're right, Matt. I am kind of contesting that as a philosophy, and I just don't find this like one of these ways is better than the other or more morally correct. Like what makes it moral or not is your intention.
Touchstone of the very real movie with Tom Cruise about what happened to samurai honor when faced with
samurai honors found methods. At the bottom of a bottle is what I learned.
That only a white man can teach me what honor truly is. That's what I learned.
But yeah, so that's I don't know. I don't find the questions this narrative poses to be all that interesting to grapple with, regardless of their execution. I think it's at least in this format, it just doesn't. I think
what's most compelling is just the conflict it poses between family.
Right.
It's more about not debating the rightness or wrongness of either methodology. It is more about what that means to when families, come.
This is about telling your uncle you're gay. That's what this is actually about.
Man, all games are a metaphor. All art is a metaphor for something, and we all have that uncle.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't, you will become that uncle. Yeah, Matt. So where did you come down on its narrative, successes, failures, how engaging it was to you? What propelled you? Because I knew you would love this game because of its kind of exploration and. It's basically an easy platinum. I was like, I know you're going to get sucked into, this is like it's going to just appeal to the completionist aspect of you. I knew it was going to see you through that way, but was that what was propelling you forward? What was because you got into it when you started. I remember you were starting your text and you're like, yeah, this is pretty good. Like, this is okay. Like, I'm enjoying it, whatever. And then you were just fully into it. I'm clearing out everything. I'm 100%ing the maps. I'm doing all this.
I mean, one of the big things for me, so in like an opposition to both of you, like, yes, I played frontline, but I also fully engaged with all of the, entering ghost mode or ghost stance, I guess would be the proper way of saying it. Poisoning,
we're going necessary.
Ghost. Yeah, I'm going ghost. Danny Phantom. It's my Danny Phantom game.
Hell yeah.
Because we can't make anything good for. Was that also Butch Hartman? I feel like everything from Nickelodeon back then was Butch Hartman.
I think so.
I think it's his art style. But like I engaged with poisoning people. I was all in on driving people mad. Like I fully engaged with all of the mechanics.
I don't think Butch Hartman has a scandal. I think you're thinking of.
Wasn't that the?
That is the artist, but no, you're thinking of it's like one of like the network guys. He was the artist.
I thought it was Butch Hartman who was.
Dan something.
Keep going. I'll look it up.
But like I fully engaged with all those mechanics, so like the story followed and like made sense from that perspective for the way I played.
Dan Schneider is who you're thinking of.
Yeah,
He's the producer.
Any Dan Schneider run from.
He's the bad guy.
But like the way that the map unlocks, because like you're generally rewarded for just moving around and checking things out, looking and being like, ooh, there's a mountaintop over there. I'm gonna go over there and check this out. I found the DLC to be more of the same but better for a lot of how the mechanics of the base game worked. A lot more interacting with that relationship with Jin and his father, which was cool to see played out. More difficult Mongol horde to get used to. The Twin Blade guys were still one of the...
Oh, they rocked my shit at first.
Yeah, like anytime you saw like a group of Twin Blade guys, you'd pull them into a standoff and hope that the Twin Blade guys were the ones jumping into the standoff and not the random accoutrement.
Yeah.
I didn't play the DLC. Did they add anything mechanically to combat at all?
Yeah, you have horse stuff,
and the main changes were just increased enemy variety. You've got those guys, and then you had the enchanters who would buff your guys. Which so they have a version of those in Yotei. They're not super common, but they do exist.
Like you unlock an armor set and the ability to like charge with your horse and kill a bunch.
The monkey armor. I loved the monkey armor.
And then like the final boss of the DLC is definitely a harder fight than Khoten Khan. I think that's the eagle.
I didn't find either of them to be particularly challenging. I like the duels. The duels are the best part, are some of the best parts. I love those because those are like the just pure, literally just cinema. Like as you're starting each duel, as they're eyeing each other down, and the flip open of the katana got me every time.
This game has style, like without a doubt. There is style dripping from this game. In a very satisfactory way.
I mean, because their biggest inspirations come from Japanese cinema, and obviously there's the Kurosawa mode that you can use in game. Also,
which
I don't say there's actually they actually say that so Kurosawa is a big one. But why am I blanking on his first or the other part of his name? But Miike, who is one of the other modes from this one, was actually one of their bigger influences.
That mode's not in
Takashi Miike. No, I don't think that mode was. Takashi Miike was one of their bigger inspirations from style gameplay. It's, Mud, Blood, and Steel was like their kind of core ethos, and that's really kind of derived from like 13 Assassins, which is Takashi Miike.
The Kurosawa mode is a cool idea. I don't really love its execution.
I mean, my opinion, it's like the game is so beautiful. Like,
right, exactly.
Why would I want to see it in black, the whole thing in black and white?
Black and white. Yeah, that's my biggest issue with it.
they do other things to kind of to bring forward other things. Like there's a lot more motion. The wind is increased in Kurosawa in the Kurosawa mode, because that was something that was a key factor of Kurosawa's cinematography, is like this kind of motion in the background of the world of wind, smoke, leaves, all that kind of stuff. So they increased that to have a kind of a replacement for a visual element that gets lost when you remove color. But yeah, no, I never fucked with that, because I'm just like, the world's too beautiful. I want to see the pretty world.
Exactly. It's too pretty. It's too well done. The colors are great. Like just the visual presentation of this game is top.
Matt, you'd be interested in this one. That one of their core inspirations beyond cinema was actually Shadow of the Colossus was one of its core influences. And they actually worked with Japan Studio as part of their consultation process of working. They helped get them. They traveled to Tsushima, did a lot of kind of immersion in the culture.
I don't know how you didn't notice that. It was very obvious to me when I climbed up the leg of Khoten Khan to puzzle climb my way to his head weak point.
Yeah. But that was their inspiration for the wind being your traversal guide. Is in Shadow of the Colossus, it's the light that you hold up with the sword, and so it was about the world, about the environment being your guiding point, nature being your guiding. I think which ending did you guys choose? Did you spare the uncle, or did you commit to the samurai and give him a warrior's death?
I let him deal with his own issues.
Trying to remember, I believe I spared him because I think it I think narratively it fit better.
It has more emotional impact, right?
Yeah.
That's where, again, the story did seal itself as being successful, despite some of the flaws that we've pointed out and the issues I had with it. It's the reality that these ideological differences that we can have with family, they're not easily solvable. That sometimes there is a break, and how tragic that can be, and how our commitments to the things that are important to us can, in some ways, must alienate us from some of those that we care most about. That there are things that are worth sacrificing. All these things. Not to say that like killing your uncle is not a big thing to deal with, and that's not like a clean outcome or finish. But in terms of like the cultural understanding that they're presenting, it is.
How much better would society be where if you had a familial disagreement over something, you went into an honorable duel that resulted in the death of one of them?
The other one, the loser,
Imagine
must commit harikari.
Yeah. Thanksgiving
Imagine
and
family
Christmas
when your uncle goes off on his tirade, and you're like, "That's it, Uncle. We're dueling right now." You don't have to worry about that anymore. It's over.
Yeah, and that definitely does appear to be the canon ending based off of what happens in Yotei, of what you see in Yotei. No spoilers, but it definitely appears to be the quote-unquote canon ending. Yeah, so I have a couple of final just interesting points about this game, and it ties into this idea of how do we feel about a bunch of Westerners, making, weeaboo the game type of thing. Like, I'm not a person of the opinion that, like, only a person from a culture can talk about or explore another culture. That would create a certain stagnation in culture that would, sometimes you need an outsider to investigate things that people are uncomfortable with. One thing that I read that was interesting is that certain Japanese devs were really grateful that this studio did this, because based on their current cultural standards in Japan, they couldn't have produced a game featuring a middle-aged male protagonist. You gotta be young, attractive, marketable type person, right? Whereas a gritty, grizzled, middle-aged dude, is not seen as marketable in Japan. So they were really grateful to see that. But yeah, this game has sold 13 million copies. As far as the latest issue that we know, it sold over 1 million copies in Japan. It was, at the time of its review, only the third Western developed game to earn a perfect 40 out of 40 review score from Famitsu. This was very popular in Japan and was appreciated for its cultural sensitivity, its representation of Tsushima. The directors were made like cultural ambassadors for spreading the name and history of Tsushima. So the Japanese loved this game.
I mean, then from my perspective, that kind of closes the case, right? Like, I think you can have outsiders explore other cultures and things, but whether or not they're successful, I think is kind of based on how that culture responds to it. And, the people of Japan responding so emphatically, I think, means they treated their culture and these topics with the respect they should have.
Man, Uncle would be turning in his grave to see the world that has become in Yotei. I've been loving those memes of just like all the shinobis just like killing from the shadows and samurai using guns, and then it's just memes of just Shimura with the tear rolling down his face. This is what the world has become.
His dishonor would be even greater if he flashed forward another couple hundred years.
See the glory that has become of Japanese culture? That's a whole nother topic. Folks, final thoughts on Ghost of Tsushima. Where does it sit in that PS4 and even in the cross generation? Is it do you agree with its general 80? As an average, it's like an 86 roughly.
Yeah. I think for me that's reasonable. Like I don't think this is like a perfect masterpiece game for me, but it is endlessly fun. It is visually interesting and engaging. It begs you to explore in a fun way that's not overwhelming, that doesn't, inundate you with lists of things to do. Like, for me, this game exceeded the experience I wanted from it, and I think, like an 8.5, 9 is where I'd put it.
You see, by modern review standards, it's below a 9 out of 10, so it's pure slop
That means
garbage.
it's bad. That means it's bad.
Can't play it. Wow, why'd they waste years developing this when they
The
should
only-
have made?
The only point in fairness I have for that critique is just that there are so many games out, and games are so expensive, and gaming is so expensive, is that, yeah, I want to play the best of the best.
I've seen some interesting takes before online where people were like, "Yeah, but why aren't they just making Sly Cooper instead?" It's like, Sly
said,
Cooper.
Go ahead. No,
I was just gonna say, like, Sly Cooper is fondly remembered by people who were kids when Sly Cooper was a game. Didn't really. If we're going to talk about critical success,
somebody asked the devs about that with during the Yotei press
tour. There's a Sly Cooper set in the game,
but they've got actually in Yotei they've got references to basically all their games. There's like murals that you can find on the walls. Some armor sets are kind of vaguely referential, but yeah, they're like, any interest in doing a new Sly Cooper game? And they're like, literally 0 people at the studio have any interest in returning to Sly Cooper. They completely put that to bed. They're like, nope, none of us ever want to do that again. So we see where that's going. I know Matt is waiting for the inevitable DLC that they will probably drop for Yotei before he jumps in. Andrew, how far have you gotten into Yotei?
I'm at like halfway probably.
And so based on that feeling, would you want them to do a third one? Make it a trilogy anthology, or do you think you want them to move on and explore something else after this? Is this a property that's them worth investing more time?
I would probably lean towards no. I don't see much more room for iteration. I think Yotei has kind of perfected this as much as they can, and I'd rather them go elsewhere, I think, because I want to see new ideas.
In my opinion, if they're going to return to something, they should return to Infamous and try something else.
That would be cool.
Which the one cool parallel. So Infamous, obviously known for its binary karma system of you become a hero or a villain. There is none of that physically going on, overtly I should say, going on in Tsushima. But there is a cool thing that I learned about that I didn't really experience because, again, my playstyle was going in decidedly in the samurai vein. That there is technically a karma system going on behind the scenes, and that the more you indulge in the ghost techniques and ghost kills, the world will get darker, and the weather will get more cloudy and stormy and more dark and depressing. Whereas if you maintain the path of honor, it stays bright and sunny and beautiful. So it's a kind of cool little thing that
I did not know that.
I only knew it by reading.
Like Zelda, you can just play a song to change the weather.
Last final comparison I'll make there is that the Iki Island flute playing minigame absolutely clears the shamisen playing. I found the shamisen playing in Yotei to be shitty, where you're just trying you have to slide just to find a note. It's like you're literally using the motion of the controller to follow the path of
you tip it up and down
and it fits the path of the song, so you're actually playing the whole song. Much better, much better.
Yeah, I don't love the shamisen. It's very.
I love the shamisen. I love the sound. I love it as as its thematic use.
Yes.
I love its use in the soundtrack as an instrument, but just playing it, I don't really love.
Totally.
But yeah, I think Tsushima is a high B, low A. However, I do think I'm content with the franchise. I would want to see them move on. I think it succeeded in what it wanted to do. It has gotten better in Yotei in lots of ways, and I think they've shown that they clearly have the technical chops to do impressive, immersive gameplay, and I'd like to see them take it somewhere new. I think.
Hear me out. Ghost of Pearl Harbor.
Oh no! Cut his mic! No! We will not entertain this.
I'm just doing, a similar, flash forward in time.
So what's another 400 years? Because that would put us almost right there. I think someone did it, and it would be like 1932. So it's just like, oh no, okay.
You're playing that one Japanese soldier who was on that island who thought the war was still going on.
Who still thought that the Empire still stood strong, that the war was still going on. Oh boy. All right, folks, that has been our discussion of Ghost of Tsushima, with a fair amount of Ghost of Yotei thrown in there as well. I believe we are off next week. We've got, I think, a two weeks that will be off this month. So my guess is that we'll do something probably news related. We'll do like a YouTube video on something news related that we want to talk about. That'll come out next week, and then we'll just check in the middle of the month to see what everybody's playing, and we'll go from there. All right, boys, thank you for joining. Looks like Matt's got to go herd that cat. We will let him go do that, and folks, we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.